How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. Soon, I will be joined by my DallasBasketball.com colleague, Grant Afseth. He's also a correspondent for the Mavs Step Back Podcast. He's at all the games. He's in the locker room. He's getting good exclusive stuff for DallasBasketball.com. His most recent exclusive is from Kyrie Irving himself in the Mavs locker room. Got a really good exclusive piece from him last night. Be sure to go to DallasBasketball.com. Check that out. Check out our game recap from the latest win over the Chicago Bulls. But y'all, the Mavs, they are rolling. They are 4-0 to start this season. First time since the 2004-2005 season that they have started 4-0, so nearly 2 decades. If they start 5-0, it'll be the first time since the 2002-2003 season, when they had Steve Nash and Michael Finley. So it'll be over a full decade if they're able to pull that off. But yeah, look, 114-105 over the Chicago Bulls. And it's not like it was anything, spectacular from Luka. Now, Luka still had 18 points. He had 7 rebounds and 10 assists. So that's not terrible, but it's not up to Luka's standards either. And he only shot 5 of 16 from the field. So given all that, and the Mavs to still win by 9 against a team that they had lost to coming into the night 6 times out of their last 7 tries, it's pretty good. This is one of those games that the Mavs, in my opinion, definitely would have lost last season, but they didn't this time. So they're 4-0. The Denver Nuggets lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves on the same night. So last night, Wednesday night, it was a blowout, and they were the only other undefeated team in the West aside from the Mavs. So now the Mavs stand alone in the West as the only undefeated team, and they play Denver on Friday at Denver. So it's going to be the toughest test yet for the Mavs. They're going to – it's always hard playing in Denver. Even before Denver became an NBA championship team, it's always been hard because of the altitude. So that the Nuggets are now – a super team, essentially, it makes it even tougher, for opponents going to play on the road there. So the Mavs, they have not had a hard schedule by any means so far, but, they're going to have their first real test now. And, we mentioned it on the last couple of pods, but, clutch games, the Mavs have really taken it up a notch this year so far. Last year, they were 26-29, had the most clutch games in the league. They're on pace to do that again, but they're also on pace to, not have a league high tying 29 clutch losses as well. All 4 of these first games have been clutch games, and the last 2, they have been able to separate in those last 5 minutes and make the game not as close. So, shout out to the Mavs for doing that there. Let's see here. The Mavs, they are the second team in NBA history to record 15 or more three-pointers in 4 consecutive games to start a season. The only other team to do that were the New Orleans Pelicans in the 2019-2020 season. The team shot 41.7% from 3 during the game with the Chicago Bulls last night. And it was the 3rd consecutive game where they had shot at least 40% or better from behind the arc. And this is a note from Mavs PR. It says that mark is the first time since the 2012-2013 season that the Mavs have shot 40% or better in 3 consecutive games in the first 4 games to start the season. So we talked about it before the season started. We talked about it in preseason, and you never see a fast start from this team. It's one of the things that hinders the Mavs as the season goes on. In Jason Kidd's first year, it didn't matter as much because they just got so hot towards the second half of the season. And when they had Jalen Brunson on board, and then they ended up rolling into the Western Conference Finals that year. But the second time around, they didn't have Jalen Brunson, and they didn't have Dereck Lively, and they didn't have Grant Williams, and they had Christian Wood instead, and it just didn't work. They got themselves in the same type of hole that they did the season before, but they just didn't have the talent to climb back out of it now. So heading into this season, we talked about it, Jason Kidd's teams just don't get off to a great start. They've been under 500 after the 30-game mark in both of Jason Kidd's first two seasons. So it's early. The NBA is crazy. You can easily lose 4 in a row as much as you can 5. I'm sorry. You can easily lose 4 in a row as hard as it is to win 4 in a row. So we'll see how it goes for the Mavs for the rest of the season. But I like these vibes. I really do. I think this is something that, is sustainable for the Mavs because they really haven't played their best basketball, in my opinion. There's a lot, to be happy about with what we're seeing from the Mavs here. A lot of improvements still to be, Kyrie Irving and his foot injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out with that, even though he tells DallasBasketball.com that it's better. So, we'll see when he gets back. And obviously you don't want him to rush back, especially if the team's winning without him. You want him to be as fresh as possible for the postseason. So definitely don't want to rush him back there and, get him in a bind with that injury. So, that's fine. But look, again, if the Mavs are able to beat the Nuggets on Friday, it would be the first time since the 2002-2003 season since they've had as good of a start as 5-0. And that season, they started 14-0. And if you recall, that year was the year that the Mavs probably would have won a title if Dirk hadn't gotten his ankle injured by Manu Ginobili and San Antonio Spurs in the playoffs. And that's my opinion now. But I truly believe that they would have won a title that year if that injury, hadn't happened. They were that good. But look, we got some more game notes here from the Bulls Mavs game. Grant Williams led the team in scoring. He had 25 points, shot 7 of 10 from the field. All 7 of those makes were from 3. He was 7 of 9 from 3. Shot 4 of 6 from the free throw line. Had 5 rebounds and 1 assist and 1 steal. So Grant Williams, he was amazing. My guy Grant Afseth has joined us here. I'm going to ask him specifically about Grant Williams and Derrick Jones Jr. here in a second. Hold on. Grant, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm looking forward to going to Denver to cover, the matchup against the defending champions, and then also the first in-season tournament that I keep hearing every other reporter ask about for like many, many weeks. So that'll be cool. Interesting to see that.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to I'm sure the in-season tournament will be fine, but I saw that atrocious court design that they're giving the New Orleans Pelicans, and I'm not looking forward to having to sit and look at that. but at least it's good quality basketball on the court, so I guess I can't complain too much. But that looked horrible at first sight, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, knock on wood, you might finally see Luka versus Zion.
Oh yeah. It's every time we're down there, something happens with Zion, and it's like the week before. So, we'll see if he can actually stay healthy in this next week is the big part for him. He's got to stay healthy now, and then if he stays healthy this next week, I'll say, okay, all right, maybe we'll have a chance to see it. But well, Grant, look, I appreciate you joining me. I've given everybody the rundown of what happened last night, and I told everybody about your Kyrie exclusive. Great stuff over there. People need to go check that out. And then we also have our recap up from last night too. But look, I've been talking about it. Mavs are 4-0 for the first time since 2004. If they do somehow beat the Nuggets in Denver, which now got even harder for them because the Nuggets just got blown out by the Timberwolves, and they're going to be, trying to bounce back from that. So the odds are stacked against the Mavs to start 5-0. But if it happens, it'll be the first time since the 2002 season when they started 14-0. And that team, if Dirk hadn't injured his ankle in the playoffs against the Spurs, that team probably would have won a title. So a lot of stuff happening for the Mavs that, a lot of people didn't see coming into this season. We probably saw it because, there was a considerable amount of talent influx, for this roster. And it was talent that fits what Luka likes to do better than what they had last year. So I'm not terribly surprised with it, especially considering the schedule they've had to start out. I was looking at it the last couple of pods, and I was looking at the schedule, and I was like, it's realistic if they take care of business. They could be 9-1 after these first 10 games and have some cushion, going into the tougher part of their schedule. So I'm not necessarily shocked, but they're playing really good basketball right now. And before you hopped on here, I was going into Grant Williams' night. Led the Mavs 25 points, 7 of 9 from 3. And it's not just the points, it's what he does on the other end of the court too. All the little things, he's, I've seen a couple of people say that he has taken the Dorian Finney-Smith glue guy role that we saw when Dorian was here. And I although I think that's true, I think he's elevated it a little bit because he can do a lot more than what Dorian. He's more versatile than Dorian was, in my opinion. So what were your thoughts on Grant Williams' performance last night? And, what do you think about that idea? It's like, yeah, well, maybe he is the Dorian glue guy, but he can do a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I definitely think, it was impressive. He matched his career high in both points and made threes in a single game. I thought some of those looks were tough, and they weren't in the traditional sense of like a deeply contested shot, but like when you step into like a motion shooting attempt, like step into a shot on a pass that's to your right, or you use a shot fake and then reload behind the 3-point line. Those are things that usually throw off a lot of shooters. But whether it's wide open or a look like that, Grant Williams works on it, can knock him down at a high clip. And that's a real luxury to have when you're kind of like the release valve on the weak side. I think he's putting up a lot of corner threes that, I think if you look at like his career, there's not a ton of games where he's getting this type of volume. And that's something that he's mentioned. And I think even beyond the box score, what's really impressive about him is that everyone's already gravitated towards him as the leader of the defense. And, like as Kyrie mentioned in the article that we have on Dallas Basketball, he mentioned basically like beyond Grant Williams as well, Derrick Jones Jr., Dereck Lively, they're all very impressive as like backline defenders and, presence on the glass, all that stuff. And I thought, Dorian's a little quicker and can handle like with his length some of these like I guess you could say like Donovan Mitchell's and things like that. But I think Grant Williams holds his own, even though he's probably not as quick as Dorian. And I think his size allows him to really stifle players trying to attack the rim, like kind of just staying in front of them. And I think overall, just when you piece it all together, he does a lot of those little things, as you said. He sets great screens. Like even though like at the start of the season, there were some like just little details, like they were running double drag plays, and he was the first screener with Dereck Lively as the second screener, and he just like hammered the on-ball defender and then made him trail and stuff like that. Like that's a wide base to try to get through on a screen, and little things like that, and just switch hunting with Luka, setting a good screen. That all goes a long way. And I think one last thing is that he's even shown a little bit of ability, like he did in Boston as well. But Like he's able to attack closeouts and kind of get into a short range, like play through contact, get into a little step back. He didn't knock it down last night, but he's done that numerous times. Even dating back to like the start of preseason. So I think, those are things you don't really see from Dorian, and, the tougher shot making and all that stuff. That's just not stuff you see from him either. So I think there's a lot to like about what Grant Williams provides, especially as a leader. Like, those comments about protecting Luka from the refs and all that stuff, taking the tech, a lot of that stuff, all that adds up. And you can see why, people view him as a leader for a team.
Yeah, I mean, going into last night, I didn't think because of the tear Luka has been on, I didn't think it was going to cool off against the Bulls and their defense. But, you got to give them credit. And Alex Caruso, he is a menace on the defensive end. And, all those other guys, they did a pretty good job last night. Like, they took the approach that we've seen teams in the past take, where it's like, we're going to hound Luka. We're going to send two guys every time. And if the rest of the guys beat us, then so be it. But we're not letting Luka beat us. And, that's kind of what happened last night. Luka only had 18 points. He didn't shoot very well, but he did have 10 assists and 7 rebounds. And, Grant Williams was up for the challenge. He had 25 points. Derrick Jones Jr., the guy you mentioned, he has really been on a tear lately here too. And in Memphis, he had 22 points. And I don't remember exactly how many threes he had in that game, but he hit a bunch of them.
His career high with 4, and it was also his third highest scoring game of his NBA career as well too. So that was a very interesting performance.
And then he followed it up by scoring 17 points against his former team. He was on the Chicago Bulls last year, and he was 7 of 13 from the field and hit 3 more threes and had 5 rebounds and an assist. I mean, he is in a really, really exciting putback dunk over Zach LaVine off of a Mavs miss, where he just seemed to levitate. Like he just hung up in the air for a few seconds and then dunked it over LaVine. So, and then he, you posted about this. Is actually where I saw the quote first. Was they asked him if he felt bad about dunking over his former teammate, and he said, "I'll be honest, like if my mom was there, I'd still."
It's just so funny because he's so soft spoken overall that like hearing that from him was like, that was just hilarious. Like, yeah, it was so funny.
But I mean, it was a total group effort from the Mavs in this win because, like I said, they were hounding Luka. They were saying, "You're not going to beat us." And then you had the big game from Williams. You had a good production night from Derrick Jones Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 24 points off the bench. And although it seemed like he was having a bad shooting night in certain stretches of that game, he ended up shooting 7 of 13 from 3. So, I mean, and 8 of 15 overall. So it was a really good night for Tim Hardaway Jr. So, and he had a few rebounds and a few assists too. And then Dereck Lively getting his 3rd consecutive start. He ended up with 7 points, and then he had a career high 13 rebounds and a career high 6 assists as well. And he had 2 steals and a block. So, and he was a team high plus 15 in the box score for the night. So Lively has just been incredible so far for his age. Like, I know we've talked about his basketball IQ. We've talked about all the the physical attributes that he has and how it can help him accelerate a little bit faster than normal NBA big men, rookie big men. But I mean, the Mavs have to be thrilled with how this is going so far, because this is even, I thought he would be good this first year and, fairly early. He's exceeding my expectations, which is saying something because I usually have really high ones for guys.
Well, I think he's exceeding the Mavs' expectations by far as well, because I remember when I was covering Summer League and, Jared Dudley, who was the Mavs like summer coach at the time and a current assistant coach, he would often mention Omax as the player that he expected to make an immediate impact, like whether that was like a month or 2. This is how crazy the expectations were. It was like whether that's 2 months in or after the All-Star break, he would say about Omax. And then now Omax isn't the one getting minutes. And they thought Dereck Lively would take like a year or whatever longer period than that. But it's just kind of interesting because he's making an impact like immediately. He even played well with Victor Wembanyama, the generational prospect, in the first game of the season. And it's just interesting to see how he responds, because I thought even the games in Abu Dhabi were interesting. Like, he faced a really physical matchup with Karl Towns, Rudy Gobert, and then the next game against the same team, he responds very well. And I thought, I talked to him actually in the locker room before the game yesterday about the foul trouble that he had in Memphis, and he's just so mature and attentive to detail. He was just talking about how he learned from that already. There was one day in between these games, keep in mind, like a 19-year-old talking about how he reviewed the film, learned from it, and he's ready to apply it on Wednesday's game after a Monday game. And sure enough, he does a tremendous job of avoiding foul trouble, makes a big impact on the boards on both ends. And there was a real difference when he was on the floor versus off, especially in the second half. I felt like there was some slippage from the defense overall. The Bulls started to make some momentum before he played the entire fourth quarter. That was an impressive thing as well. And overall,
the turning point. And sorry to cut you off.
That's all good.
You can continue on what you're saying, but the turning point in that fourth quarter was around the 7-minute mark. The Mavs are down by, let's see. Yeah, they were down by a point with 7 minutes left. Bulls had, it seemed like nothing was going to stop them offensively. And the Mavs miss a shot. D-Live keeps the ball from going out of bounds, slings it back in bounds with one hand to Tim Hardaway Jr., and THJ hits a three and gets fouled. That's a huge moment in a game for a 19-year-old rookie. And he threw a one-handed pass falling out of bounds on a dime to Hardaway, and hit that shot. I mean, that was incredible. I heard Jason Kidd talking about it after the game too. But I mean, what poise for a guy that young to be thrown into the fire like he has, and to be producing in those type of spots. So I mean, they got to be thrilled.
Oh, yeah, and I was just always amazed, throughout the whole game, how often, whether he got the offensive rebound, he just got a hand on the ball. That was so impressive to me. He's just so active, and 7'7" wingspan, 7'1" overall. That really makes a big difference. And that's a crazy concept. Being tall with long arms in basketball might help you out. Light years ahead analysis right there. But yeah,
it's really crazy. It's really crazy. They didn't have a guy like that, the last handful of years. And now they do. And, even if he doesn't get a rebound, or even if he doesn't get a block, just the little things, being active, getting deflections, even if the team gets the ball, making it, hard on them to do so, just the little things like that is going to help the Mavs out tremendously going forward. I'm thrilled with how he has started the year. I'm happy for him because he's a good kid too. His mom, I've seen, she said the other night she's moved to Dallas, and we see her on the broadcasts now too. So that's really good to see. One other guy I want to talk about from this game is Jaden Hardy, because, he got 2 DNPs the first 2 games of the season. He came in for that Memphis game, got some minutes, didn't play really, really well, to put it nicely. And then in this fourth game, he basically, I think he played most of the fourth quarter, or he played at least half of the fourth quarter. And
he definitely closed out pretty much all of clutch time with him, I felt like.
Right. And he hit a big 3 with, let's see, it was the last minute.
Yeah, put him up 6 before Josh Green hit that corner 3 to put him up 9. And then he had that drive.
1:41.
Well.
I see it right now. Yeah. Yeah. 1:41 left. They were up by 3, and Luka gives it over to Jaden Hardy, and he hit a 3 to put him up 106 to 100, which essentially sealed it. I mean, the final score ended up being 114-105, but at that moment, I figured it was over at that point. So Jaden Hardy, he really needed that, I think, just for his confidence. And, I'm sure after his explosion at the end of last season and the work he put in over the offseason, I'm sure he wasn't expecting the year to start the way it had in the first 3 games, but it was good to see him kind of get off the mat a little bit. So, what are your expectations for him going forward now? Because, it's hard to see him getting minutes unless they're just going to bench Seth Curry or reduce Tim Hardaway Jr.'s minutes.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be tough with the logjam they have because they can throw like Dante Exum to run the offense and things like that as well, in addition to Seth Curry and Tim Hardaway. And I think I was really impressed with like Jaden Hardy, like kind of staying positive, as you said. Like he was the last one to leave the shoot around in Memphis, getting shots up. And not to spoil a DallasBasketball.com article too much, but I actually talked to him before yesterday's game as well. And he just mentioned like the importance of staying ready, putting in extra work. And he shared some of the things that he focused on, like what he saw from that game that you mentioned in Memphis on Monday. And I thought it was interesting that he like highlighted the need for him to make a defensive impact and continue to grow in that area. Like he's always mentioned the right things ever since summer league, before it started, after it ended, and throughout training camp, about what he is continuing to work on. And the thing with that is like progress isn't always linear as well. Like you have to kind of go through different things that kind of resonate with development, and just continue to get better and get comfortable with things that are that happen, that are very important. And like you can't really like simulate too much about like real, like kind of, I guess you could say, heat of the battle kind of moments where there's a split second decision, and oh, you made the wrong one. Okay, well, two more times, now you made the right one. Like things like that. So I think seeing him like make plays in clutch time, even if it's against a team that had to have a team like a players only meeting after the first game of the season, was definitely like an encouraging thing for his development. And yeah, I think like just seeing how he like continues to build on it, and is ready when his number is called. He's had plenty of opportunity to kind of show that last year, when his number was called, he stayed ready. So yeah, I just think overall, like there's a lot of interesting young talent on like the Mavs roster right now, and seeing how it all kind of pieces together. Like they've already all shown flashes, like fourth game of the season and some earlier as well, and continuing to kind of see that develop around like Luka, like when Kyrie's healthy and all that, I think will be very intriguing overall.
Well, he played 14 minutes, shot 3 of 7 overall, ended up with 9 points, and he was the only Mavs bench player to have a positive plus minus in the box score. He was +6, and everybody else on the bench was a negative, led by Tim Hardaway Jr. It's crazy, because Tim Hardaway Jr., overall, he had a pretty decent game, but he was -9 on the game. That stuff is always there's a lot that goes into that that plus minus metric, but most times it meets the eye test. But it was good to see Hardy get in there and produce some productive minutes in a high pressure fourth quarter situation. You always love to see your young guys getting in that kind of action. That was one thing I liked, is Jason Kidd. He committed to running all the young guys out there.
Yeah, especially with Maxi Kleber's injury. I thought that was like, impressive to see Dereck Lively handle. Like they needed him to finish. I mean, they could have went with Dwight Powell if they wanted to, but seeing like the whole fourth quarter. Yeah, for sure. Like seeing them trust, like a rookie 4 games into the season, and then him respond well by, being an impact player for the whole fourth quarter. That was very impressive for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think now look, they're 4-0. People will say, well, the record, I mean, the schedule hasn't been that great. That's true. I mean, they've had a pretty manageable schedule so far.
And they lost a lot of those games.
They lost a ton of them.
2 games against the Charlotte Hornets, and they lost both of them. Like, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, look, this you can already tell this is a different team. I'm not saying they're going to beat Denver. I'm already penciling that one in as a loss. Now, if they win, that's great. But I'm penciling that one in as a loss on the schedule. But overall, I mean, I'm thrilled with how they've started, and I'm sure they are too. I mean, and Grant Williams said it after the game, 4-0 is nice, but that's not what he's focused on. Everybody, they're taking it game by game, and they're going to see how they really stack up against the best in the West when they take on Nikola Jokic and the defending champs on Friday.
And they just don't lose on their home floor too. It'll be a very interesting test. And another angle about it that I think will be kind of interesting to follow. Everyone, like especially in that Kyrie story, that we have on Dallas basketball. He mentioned the importance, like he actually like mentioned him being the one that kind of had that conversation with the team to be in shape. Like entering this off season and then coming into this season. And one thing about Denver, the elevation or altitude is definitely a challenging thing. So if you're going to play faster, you really have to be in shape to do that in Denver. So it'll be interesting to see how that might be a benefit. Maybe after the game, you'll have to read DallasBasketball.com to see what they think about it for sure. I'm interested to be able to go out there and cover that one. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's even before the Nuggets became the world championship Nuggets and, before they got all these pieces. And when they were a mid team, it was still hard going to Denver and getting a win there for the Mavs. So, it's just like the Chicago, for whatever reason, the Mavs have just had trouble against the Chicago Bulls over the last several years. Going into last night, they had lost 6 of their last 7 games against the Bulls. So even though they have new roster pieces, and I wrote about this before the game, I was like, I fully expect this to be a grind, just based on how they always play that. Zach LaVine's eyes light up when he sees Mavs blue in front of him. And he torched them in the first half and then cooled off toward the end of it. But
so many pesky defenders too, like Ayo Dosunmu, like Javon Carter, all in addition to Alex Caruso. Patrick Williams got a lot of size. I know Nikola Vucevic isn't he's probably like one of those slow-footed bigs that if he just played normal pick and roll coverage, Luka would carve apart. But they just really have a lot of annoying defenders that can fly around. even if they're having players only meetings to discuss how to use them, they're definitely one of those teams that can give you problems if someone like Zach LaVine, as you said, is stepping up, or DeMar DeRozan's on a heater and things like that. So yeah, that was definitely I remember a lot of people were kind of thinking on my timeline on X or Twitter, whatever you call it now, was talking about this is a trap game. So seeing a team that didn't handle those types of games well last year handle it last night, that's a good sign of progress, as well as what Kyrie part of what Kyrie said about in our article about handling close games. That shows the connective tissue of the group and all that stuff. So yeah, it's very, very intriguing to see them close out a game like that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was annoyed for Luka. I was watching that, and I was no matter who and it was mostly Caruso. He's the most annoying out of all of them. He's good. I mean, I got to hand it to him. He does his job well, but I was watching that, and I was just like, man, I don't know. I'm not surprised Luka got his first technical of the season last night. So.
No, and then we also have something coming soon about Alex Caruso. I was able to talk to him. He talked about guarding Luka and also playing his former teammate Derrick Jones. So that should be an interesting one for sure.
That'll be awesome. Well, look, Grant, I appreciate you joining me, and I appreciate the rest of you coming in to listen to us today. There's a lot of fun stuff ahead. Grant's got several things in the oven. I've got a couple of surprise trade ideas that I'm going to throw out there to bolster the Mavs' big man depth, and it's ideas that will not remove Dereck Lively from being the starter. So don't have a panic attack if you just heard that.
As long as I'm not included, that's all that matters.
Yeah, we're keeping Grant, though. We're not trading Grant. But, guys, look, we appreciate it. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Go over to Grant's channel. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's posting stuff all the time. Go run him up, too. It's just Grant Afseth, right?
Yeah, it's just the luxury of having a weird last name. No one else will have the same full name as you and username.
Very unique. So go check that out. He's got all the post-game press conference stuff, and then he takes footage of stuff like Kyrie and his pregame routine and stuff of that nature that you don't normally see on there. So go check that out. And be sure to check out DallasBasketball.com, where we have several things up already from the action throughout this week, and we have a lot of stuff coming throughout the day and the rest of this week leading into the weekend. So appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great one. We will see you next time.